So it is my distinct honor to go ahead and launch the Ellen Hughes Lectureship. We had a committee that got together to find the right person as our inaugural lecturer. And of all the committees I've been on, this one had the easiest task. It was quite quick and easy for us to come to Ira Byock as the speaker. You have in your program a bio, and that explains a lot of why we chose Ira. But beyond, underneath, and before all of those things is the clear fact that Ira, in many ways, I think you'll find him to echo some of the spirit of Ellen, some of the kindness, some of the strength that Ellen shared with us all and inspired us all with. I will say personally that for me, Ira has a very, very special place in my life. He was really part of the reason why I do what I do in palliative care. At the very, very beginning, one of the things that Ira did was lead the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation in promoting excellence in end-of-life care program. And that was really my first academic work and my first grant. And I had no idea what that all meant. But it was quite clear to me within minutes that if Ira was what palliative care was, that is what I wanted to do. And it's really, really a supreme honor for me to introduce him. He's the founder and chief medical officer of the Institute for Human Caring at Providence Health, which is really an amazing development in the world, I think, of healthcare. All of us, I think, will be seeing more and more of that influence. The former director of palliative care at Dartmouth and professor emeritus at the Dartmouth School of Medicine. I think that we could have no better opportunity to both reflect on well-being and to reflect on Ellen than to hear Ira come and talk with us, walking close to the fire without getting burned.
It's such a great honor to be among you, friends, colleagues, mentors. I'm honored by your presence. I'm honored to give this lecture in honor of your dear colleague, Ellen Hughes. To those of you who are family and friends, my deep sympathy to you at the loss of this remarkable person. I wish I had known her. Of course, this lecture is only partly about Dr. Hughes, and it is not about me. It's about all of us, really, as professionals who comprise this remarkable institution. Yeah, I said us because in an official way, I'm an alumnus of UCSF. My residency diploma says UCSF, though I trained in family medicine at Valley Medical Center in Fresno, California. A remarkable family medicine program, and we were proud to be part of the UCSF system. When Steve McPhee and Mike Rabo asked me to give this lecture, I was delighted, of course, but taken aback. I kind of gulped, really, because they sort of know me, and yet they asked me to do this lecture? Really? With no false modesty, I don't consider myself in any way an expert on physician well-being or self-care. I am not a paradigm of healthy behaviors. Anyone who's had dinner with me could attest to that. That's why there's actually 3 titles for this talk. The subtitle, you may have noticed, is Late Life Wisdom from a Serial Offender. I thought that members of my family would have, frankly, be bemused by the committee's choice of me for this honor. I mean, they love me and all that, but those, my daughters and wife who live with me in my 30s and 40s and 50s, early 50s at least, would think that seeing me as an authority in work-life balance, teacher of self-care, would be at least ironic. They've been generous because I've come a ways. But while this is not about me, it occurs to me that I might offer myself, my adult life at least, as a object lesson in both the challenges and opportunities for clinician self-care and professional well-being. I've certainly been interested in the topic for a very long time, throughout my entire career. It's just that it's only until the last few years, at least, I just haven't been very good at it through my career. Things started out on a hopeful note. Just prior to beginning medical school at the University of Colorado in Denver, I enrolled in a 6-week summer class at Naropa Institute in Boulder. It was the first summer that Naropa was there, and I did a course for 6 weeks, 2 days a week with Ram Dass. It was called the Yogas of the Bhagavad Gita. It was mostly around living with dying. That's what it was about 90% around, and some meditation thrown in. As a freshman medical student, I was elected class president, and I helped create a course or program called We're Human Too. It was a peer-to-peer series of classes, workshops, and events directed at student self-care. We organized meditation groups and yoga classes and integrative medicine classes and seminars, and we arranged access to faculty psychiatrists for personal counseling. I used it a lot. I also did yoga for years. I still do a very short series of poses every morning. And I've had a regular meditation practice for now 4 decades. All true. But through my training and the first 3 decades or so of my practice, I've been driven by a sense of urgency. I've had a tendency to take on too much work far too long and every day, get too little sleep, drink too much coffee, get too little exercise and relaxation. Basically, I've been driven. That's not all bad, of course. I feel passionately about the possibilities for vastly improving care for people and quality of life for people living with serious illness. My own patients, your patients, collectively, all of us as human beings. And it's certainly helped me, that driven sense has certainly helped me get a lot of stuff done. But the urgency I felt, still feel, has not always been fun for me or has made me easy to live with. For instance, people sometimes ask me, Dr. Byock, when do you like to write? I know what they're asking, of course, like when do you do it, how do you carve it? But like to write, wow. It's a fair question, but it implies that I'm writing for the enjoyment of it. Let's be clear, I don't write because I want to. I write because I have to. I write because I'd get migraines if this stuff stayed inside me. As my wife Yvonne, and colleague of mine, she's here, would tell you, when I'm working on an op-ed, until it's complete, it's like I've got a fever that won't break. And I'm hell to live with. But if I didn't write, I toss and I turn at night and get headaches during the day, and it'd be a mess. Most of what I write arises from a sense of frustration. That some point of view isn't being expressed, isn't being discussed, that we're going off in the wrong direction. Sometimes it's a sense of anger and injustice. My writing comes from a burning desire to speak into the culture, to contribute to the national conversation in some positive way. And I'm self-aware enough to recognize that same urgency that has made me productive has sometimes made me downright annoying. I get it, believe me. I get that I rub some people the wrong way. But let me tell you, I am a well-intentioned person trapped in the body of a unipolar manic. Someday there will be a genetic sequence or other explanation for why I'm a hot responder, for what makes me so darn rambunctious and at times so irritating. For now, I'm sorry we'll have to do. Back to the object lesson. During my early career, my career kind of bifurcated. I was in Fresno doing rural family practice training. I could hold a scalpel at a C-section and do my fracture management, did a lot of emergency medicine, a lot of intensive care, and I loved it. And I kind of went toward that direction. But at the same time, I'd founded a hospice program for rural indigent people in Fresno, and boy, that got under my skin and really attracted me in some very interesting ways that I'll leave for another day. But in moving toward hospice and being really finding the remarkable experiences there being one of the more satisfying parts of my clinical practice, I started to learn a lot about life. Mortality will teach us a lot about life. It's taught me a lot about life. Here's one piece of wisdom that I bring to you from what mortality has taught me at the end of life. Lesson number 1. Human beings are imperfect. We strive for perfection, and I don't want to talk anybody out of that or diminish your enthusiasm, but if my clinical experience and my personal experience is any guide, you're likely to die imperfect. My own suggestion for myself, but I'll offer it for whatever value it has, is get over it. We're just human. We're not perfect. And being human is good enough. We can strive for perfection, but it's just essential that we don't beat ourselves up when we find that we're human and imperfect. Many people are relentlessly hard on themselves. You know, we grew up as human doings rather than human beings. You've heard that. Some of us more than others. I'm an adult child of Jewish parents. You can find it in the DSM-5. It's listed right under adult children of Catholic parents, by the way. I was told I was a good boy. I knew I was in a loving home, but being good had a half-life, and it kind of, you know, and you had to recharge it from time to time. I get good grades, you know, study hard, get good grades, you know, clean your room, sweep the floor after dinner without being reminded, right? You know. But people, I find, we carry that, and we think that we have to do stuff and earn being good. There are other cultures, and there are other alternatives. Maybe we're just good. So this realization of being imperfect hasn't made me lazy or uninterested in self-improvement, but it's helped me to sort of adjust my own expectations, and I hope sort of lighten up a little. A little? We'll talk. Lesson number 2 from mortality. The things that matter most to people, to me, aren't things at all. They're other people. Right? When I've just swerved on the brakes and missed a car, I live in Los Angeles these days, and, you know, or just something just happened and I realized, oop, geez, I could have died, right? My heart's pounding, the adrenaline is going. What's on my mind is my wife and daughters. Right? I'm not thinking about my email. I'm not alone in this. For years, I've asked people, what matters most now? When they're being wheeled into, you know, surgery, thoracotomy, facing cancer chemotherapy for the 3rd or 4th time, or talking in an infusion. Tell me, just what matters most now? The answer will always include the names of the people they love. Doesn't matter what their diagnosis really is. It doesn't matter how old they are. It doesn't matter the color of their skin. their religion, their ethnicity. We're hardwired this way, of course. The things that fill our calendars fall away pretty quickly. It's simply a fact of the human condition that we matter to one another, and that's a source of potential unbelievable gratification or deep emotional pain, or both. Mortality will teach us a lot. It will teach me a lot. Since human beings are imperfect, I've learned that our relationships tend to be imperfect. Even our most close and loving relationships are usually not without bumps, right? I'm fond of saying that the phrase dysfunctional family is really redundant. Most of us suffer emotional cuts and scrapes when we're growing up. It's sort of normal, and it is normal. And they heal over time, but sometimes later something occurs to pick the scab, a piece of criticism, maybe from a parent or a sibling or former mentor, coach, whatever. And it reminds us of the hurts we carry. What I found in my years of emergency medicine, but also in my hospice and palliative care practice, is that when you have that intimate relationship with people, you find out that everybody's suffering. That's not just a Buddhist thing. Everybody is suffering from these mostly emotional pain and mostly centered in relationships with others or with themselves. We haven't lived up to our own expectations. We've never been famous enough or published enough or wealthy enough or pretty enough or tall enough or good enough at sports or whatever. And sometimes when people point that out to us, it hurts, and it hurts our relationships. What I've learned through mortality is that I've seen this at the bedside or in relationship, in therapeutic relationship with healthy families, right, that I think really have it together. And so that's helped me also to adjust my own expectations. And I think I live in a healthy family, I think. But there are some tensions. It's a blended family. There are some lumps in the batter. But also some, history of hurt feelings. They've come out from time to time. My advice that I try to give myself, I do a lot of self-counseling, I'll talk about that a bit, is have some mercy. For years I've in doing life review with people, and I've often said if your life was a biographical novel, and we were getting to the latter chapters, and you've been through a lot, wouldn't you have some sense of mercy or some compassion for the protagonist here? Have some mercy. You're not perfect, but boy, you're a good person. And perhaps, too, this can help me lighten up a little bit. Now, no group that I can identify is harder on themselves than doctors. Our expectations are, we're like Navy SEALs or Olympic athletes. We are hard on ourselves. Remember lesson number 1. Human beings are imperfect. Tell me something. Did you think that when you went to medical school, that would change? You would become infallible? Ask a sibling. Ask your spouse. Hasn't happened. Intellectually, of course, we know that that's true. We know we're not perfect, that we're vulnerable to making mistakes, but emotionally it's hard to accept that fact, and particularly in practice. Somehow we expect that we'll be perfect. One of the most really poignant parts of the wonderful book, When Breath Becomes Air, for me, is the death of Paul's good friend Jeff, a senior surgical resident, who ended his life by jumping from a hospital roof following the death of a patient from a complication. I literally gasped when I read the line. I mean, it was a really bad day in the life of a really good person. I never knew Jeff, but I so wish he was still alive. I so wish he could know how utterly worthy he was. You know, in one sense, perfect is too easy. It has this sort of Barbie and Ken quality to it. No imperfections, right? It's too good to be true. The people in this room or watching us in other rooms are more authentic than that. We are more real than that. I sometimes, when speaking to a general audience, I do Q&A and after lectures and stuff, and I ask people, if you were forced to choose, if you had to choose, would you rather have a happy life or live fully? A related but even harder question is, would you rather be happy or live fully? Or would you rather have an easy life or live fully? People who say easy or be happy are in for disappointments. Even for those of us who, by sheer luck of demographic privilege, have life relatively easy, life can still be very hard. Furthermore, because stuff happens, happiness is sometimes very hard to achieve or to sustain. No one gets out of this one without experiencing misfortune, sadness, loss. Indeed, to love is to grieve. The people in this room have clearly chosen live fully. By the arduous self-selection process that brings you here, by the formal selection process that led you to being in this room, you've committed to living fully, to serving others. That's part of what feeds your soul, what gives you a sense of meaning. And by the way, for that alone, you've earned my endearing and enduring respect. But given that you are imperfect, a real human being, that means that you're going to dust yourself off from time to time and get back after a bad day or week or month. It's just part of what we do. Why do we do that? Because it's not about us. It's about the people we serve. Now, this lecture seems an appropriate time to talk about some fundamental truths, at least from my own perspective. So I want to share probably what is my deepest insight about life. I laugh, but I'm not kidding. The central question that I believe life asks me in various permutations and situations and ways every day is whether to act from love or fear. In acting from fear, which is sort of reflexive, I protect myself, defend myself and my resources. I may avoid, hide, flee, or fight. Either way. In acting from love, I have to move toward. I have to acknowledge that I'm vulnerable. I have to kind of be open, embracing, generous rather than protective. Now, I strive to act from love. I really do. I don't always succeed. That reflex of fear is very deep. It's very embedded in our very ego structure. You know, courage is not an absence of fear, but the decision and ability to act in spite of fear. From my perspective, your choice of a career in healthcare and medicine, speaking to my colleagues who are doctors, is simply courageous. It puts love before perfection and therefore before ego. That's a big thing. But in choosing to serve in this matter, rather than choosing some easier or sunnier path, you've accepted that mistakes would be made, and I ask you, have some mercy. The first of the three titles for this talk is Walking Close to the Fire Without Getting Burned. I chose that because I think the metaphor is strong. We all are, like cultural firemen, where everybody else, any reasonable person, is moving away, getting the heck out of there. You rush in. Wow. Really deep respect. But doing the work that we do and being imperfect means that you almost have to acknowledge that at times you're going to fail. I hate to fail. I really, really hate to fail. But there is no shame in failing if you're doing it for the right reasons, if the effort was for the right reasons. An acceptance that I might fail, despite my good motivating impulses and high values, earnest efforts, is actually an important characteristic of why I think from time to time I really succeed. I take on things that are ambitious, that other people just wouldn't do. Because, well, life goes on, right? If not, I wouldn't aim high enough. And I think that's important. And I have to say, although I think part of the success for a medical center as great as this is in having people obviously grow within the practice of medicine, grow within the profession, I know a few people, you probably do too, who left the practice of medicine, left medicine, and are still doing okay. Right? It's not the worst thing in the world. For me, Jeff's suicide is the worst thing. So if you absolutely can't, if all the stuff that Andrew's doing and we're all doing, everybody's doing, Steve's doing, Mike's doing, Kathy's doing, all the work that we're trying to do to support people, if it doesn't work and it doesn't feel right, it's still okay, life goes on. I promise you. Now, I say all this because I've had my own dark experiences with grief and dark emotional spaces, just a few, just to be perfectly transparent. When I was in college, one of my first girlfriends had her first schizophrenic break and ended up in public mental hospitals for quite a while. Later committed suicide. My dad's diagnosis of pancreatic cancer and dying just when we were getting our acts together, and after a long, painful separation from him. It took me a long time to actually grieve this one, but I had the death of a patient during my residency that was tough. It's tough even to talk about. A 2-week-old infant, a young couple who I followed through pregnancy. I held the knife at Rohelia's cesarean section. I was really close to this young couple. Her husband had Christmas disease, and I was his doctor. We were very close. When when their son was born, they named him Ira. Ira Sanchez. You can't make this stuff up. I mean, you gotta, so here is this healthy infant that I was part of from the beginning. Ira died at 2 weeks of age of inexorable viral sepsis. I had done several rotations in the NICU, and Dr. Vish knew how close I was to this case, and he let me be the attending in the NICU with strong, close supervision, but I managed the case. And I was so busy that I had to push it aside. But boy, oh boy, that was a tough one. And then probably the worst of my times was the dissolution of my first marriage. My first wife just walked out of the marriage, and 2 daughters. During the worst of the times, at my home office in the middle of the day, without any announcement at all, without any cover sheet, the fax machine started whirring. And out of the fax machine came a Ziggy cartoon that had been blown up kind of thing. And in it, Ziggy is sort of reading a big sign on the wall, and it starts at the top, and it says, "Things to do today." right? And the top is, and he's down here at the bottom. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. I think that's profound. Everything that I've distilled from my mentors and teachers and authors, for me, this is my self-counseling, comes down to 2 lines. Keep your heart open, remember to breathe. That's my thing. That's what I say that to myself multiple times a day. Now, keep my heart open is metaphorical. It's my guidance around emotional orientation to the world. It's not my physical heart, obviously. But remember to breathe, well, that's actually literal. That's really helpful to me. Keep your heart open, remember to breathe. People ask me, how has the work that you've done affected your personal life, Ira? Well, I frequently remind myself, I'm not perfect, I'm just human. That's got to be good enough. I'm not a bad person, I'm actually a good person. I don't know how others see me. It amazes me that you folks chose me to do this, but that's for a conversation over dinner and strong drink. I'm still striving to be more sensitive, listen longer, better, not snap at people. Really, I am. But I still don't get it right all the time. These days, when I fail to act out of love, when I screw up, I try to stay open to myself. I think over the years I've become somewhat easier to live with. I know I have for myself, and I hope I have for others. That sense of urgency is still there. It's just that I've learned to breathe. How has it affected my personal life? Well, many of you know that I've written a lot about human development through the end of life, using that developmental language and model, conceptual framework, and which includes just sort of doing, for me, a personal scan, like an environmental scan, with the question, what would be left undone if, heaven forbid, you were to die suddenly today, as any of us might? If I was, if the big one happened and we were all in rubble and I, knew I wasn't going to get extracted till I was dead, what would I be worried about? Again, it always comes back to other people, for me, and I think for pretty much everybody. And I've taught this technique, this very simple technique. I didn't make it up, but I've become sort of the Johnny Appleseed of it, of saying 4 things before you have to say goodbye. Please forgive me. I forgive you. Thank you. I love you. If you're stuck with anything, you can't think of something to say, those 4 things will really structure a conversation. So while I'd love to tell you that I've become more sensitive, what really I've learned is how to apologize more sincerely, far more quickly, far more thoroughly. I never say anymore, I'm sorry you got your feelings hurt. That used to be an apology. It's embarrassing, but she's here. I can't lie to you. But now I say, I'm really sorry. I screwed up. And I ask for forgiveness. It happened just the other day with a daughter of mine, my youngest daughter, where she pointed out to me on the phone something that I've been saying to her for a while that's really been hurting her feelings. As soon as I heard it from her perspective, I didn't say, I'm sorry you got your feelings hurt, which is like passive voice, by the way. And, I said, I'm really sorry. I screwed up. That's not what I intended. Please, can you please forgive me? Now, what I found is that if I apologize to somebody like that, it's like standing naked in front of them, warts and all, saying, will you still have me? And being accepted, and thankfully my family is generous with me, really almost strengthens relationships in that regard. It's paradoxical, but there it is. Time is short, so I'll be quick. I want to talk we all distinguish resilience from strength. I think that's true. In my mind, strength is, the titanium bars or the steel I-beams that resist the gale. And we talk about resilience, I've talked about resilience as being more like a willow, right, that can bend. But I've come to think that resilience is actually better captured by the notion of a river that keeps flowing towards its direction, its destination. And it can be dammed or for a while and held back, but it eventually finds a way around. It either flows over barriers, goes around barriers, dissolves barriers. It can be held back and delayed a bit, but it gets there. It's its very nature to flow forward. Resilience, like rivers, requires persistence. I believe that persistence is an undervalued virtue. Steve McPhee asked me to meet with various faculty members today and to glean from them what's happening and some thoughts that I might have. And I'm still doing that, so I don't want to step on my later distillations for you. But I think this is an absolutely great medical center. I'm so proud to be, even though I was in Fresno, I'm so proud to be part of this legacy of this medical center. And as somebody who's an outsider, right, and somebody who does national stuff, I think what distinguishes a truly great medical center from the merely excellent is not its level 1 trauma designation or its gamma knife, but its gathered life. A sense of community, bound by common purpose and pride. UCSF is such a place. It's an institution with a great and proud history, but not only a proud history. It stands, you all stand on a legacy of giants. An enduring commitment to building on that legacy is palpable. This is not a monument, it's a vibrant team. Part of what I want to offer to you, and this I hope doesn't sound glib or sort of crass, but I think I would love this institution to think of itself like the Giants or the 49ers. You're bringing your best day in and day out for the people of this city. I've been asking the people I meet, what distinguishes UCSF from other health systems and medical centers in this city? You know them, I won't name them. What distinguishes UCSF, right? There's been a little hesitation, but I can tell you from an outsider, and we eventually get to agreement. Everybody I've spoken with has agreed. First, there is this unshakable commitment to excellence, right? You're paid less, you work harder. It's true. That's not a secret. But there's this unshakable commitment to excellence. Yes, you're an academic center, there's education and research, but you also serve everyone. It's so obvious, and yet it's been interesting that it hasn't come back to me. Nobody else serves everyone here. You do. Oh, by the way, just like the Giants and the 49ers. Somos juntos. We are all San Francisco. I think that you don't see it because it's in the water here. Fish don't. If you ask a fish about the environment, they won't say, well, where there's a water. That social justice mission, that social safety net mission is so much part of this medical center that it's there, and the sense of mission and purpose is a currency that you have banked, that has been banked by your ancestors. Use it. Celebrate it. I really and truly, I'm not just kidding, and I hope it doesn't sound crass, but I think this place ought to think about branding itself as if you were a team proudly representing all people, bringing the excellence, international excellence to this. When you go to a 49ers game or a Giants game, what do you see? Bling. Logo wear. That ought to be a point of pride, that you get up, when you get up in the morning, you're going to be beat down by your clinic schedule and everything else, your commitments and the conference calls, the committees, but you work here. So as I close, I need to close. No lecture on self-care would be complete without mentioning take care of yourself, wilderness, nature, sunlight. Sunlight is a antidepressant. It really is, even if you don't have seasonal affective disorder. It's a euphorogen. Exercise. I do believe in centering practices, whether it's meditation or yoga or running or prayer, certainly, throwing pots, whatever. Good food, affection, even sex is good for self-care. There's a story told, they asked Sigmund Freud once, he was apparently walking, and they said, how do you define health? That's another question I've been asking people. How do you find physician well-being, or how do you find health? And Freud said, just off the top of his head, the ability to love and to work. Not bad. I would add the capacity for joy. The ability to laugh. Somebody who's giggling is well. Right? For me, in addition to all these centering practices and things, young children do it for me. I giggle around young children. Get outside of myself. I have another lesson. Okay. Lesson number, where are we? 4. It ain't over till it's over. Yogi Berra taught us that. Thank goodness, because I am a late life learner. I'm a serial offender. But my patients have taught me it's not over till it's over. Sometimes at the end of a long life and broken relationships, they get it together. I think for those of us who worked and put off things during early parts of life and delayed gratification for our career, and me, I was trying to change the world, and that's not neurotic. I've never accepted that criticism. It's not a workaholism if what you're doing is feeding your soul. But it's also important then to eventually get the gratification. Go to Paris, right? Take that trip to Tahiti, whatever. That's okay. That's not being indulgent at that point. That retroactively is validating your delayed gratification so that you're not retroactively neurotic in your earlier career. I'm just saying. It turns out redemption is possible. I learned that. I'm growing more adept at self-care and professional well-being. In 2013, I left an endowed chair at Dartmouth to move west to be nearest our eldest daughter and husband, who was just starting a family. I would not be a Skype grandparent. I was too distant as a father because I was building career and changing the world. Left without a job, just thanks very much, everybody, we're out of here. Now I have a fabulous job. I work with the Institute for Human Caring and many colleagues, including Matt Gonzalez and Colin Scabetta, who we attracted to the Institute for Human Caring. And we're trying to make highly personalized care the new normal throughout this large health system, doing it in a very audacious, non-incremental way. But more importantly, today, I am Zumpa, grandfather to my 2 grandsons, the center of the known universe. There is giggling in my life, happier than I've ever been. Today, I am well. I am grateful to be alive. And I am so pleased, proud, and grateful to be among you all. Thank you very much. Take us home, Mike.
Ira, thank you so much. I know I'm speaking on behalf of everyone in this room whose emotions I think I can probably feel. And even through the airwaves, other folks listening, that was just a very inspiring, beautiful, beautiful comment on the work we do, on the potential we have, and in a very, very true way to be able to live as Ellen did, out of love. That really struck me as being so true to who we all know Ellen to have been. in our lives. So thank you very much. Thank you very much. There are many other people I want to thank as well. Cecilia Popoulos has been incredibly helpful, and one of the people who made this happen, and it wouldn't have happened for sure without her help. So thank you so much, Cecilia. Yeah. I want to thank our committee, the selection committee, many of whom are here today: Mitch Feldman, Shelley Adler, Kevin Barrows, Natasha Kozanov, who's having us over at her beautiful home for dinner tonight, Dory Nicolo, Maxine Papadakis, Jason Satterfield, Karen Skanke, Helen Lozer, and Nancy Haugen, Ellen's sister. Thank you guys very much for your help. Now our next job begins, thinking about next year. I want to have a special thanks and a round of applause for Steve McPhee. You should know that this all really was a result of Steve's work. And as Steve said, he's going to stop bugging me now about this year's event since it's done. But this is the official launch of bugging about next year's event, which is exciting. I want to thank James Wu, who produced that beautiful video, which we'll have to show each year at the annual event. And I want to thank all the people who appeared in the video and expressed, I think, what a lot of us feel and remember about Ellen. I want to thank all of you who have donated to make this possible. Your donations have been important. They're going to be able to support the honorarium for Ira, the whole process of creating this. And if you notice, there was an envelope on the back of your... I feel like this is KQED. An envelope on the back of your agenda, which is for contributions for next year's lectureship. And I hope that you can see your contribution as a way of living your life with mercy and with love. So have mercy on us and see about giving. We're going to close now. I know that many of you probably have to go to continue on in your days. Those who have a few minutes, we have a few minutes this afternoon to spend with Ira and to have a bit of a reception this afternoon. But I want to, on behalf of the selection committee and Steve and Cecilia and myself, and the Division of General Medicine and Osher Center for Integrative Medicine, thank everybody for your attention and hope that we all can live our lives today with a little bit of a remembrance of Ellen and what she stood for, what was important to her, living our lives with mercy and out of love, and with appreciation for Ira for really reminding us of things that Ellen had taught us. Thank you all.